Hello literature connoisseurs. Let's begin chapter 2 of Nicolae. The chapter begins with Rayford and Amanda as they sit on the plane flying them to get to a plane so Rayford can pilot Nicolae on his new plane. We get some nonsense about how Rayford needs to be there to calm Amanda because she is not used to global destruction. Again, this hardly seems like World War III with only 3 countries rebelling against the global community. We know missiles were involved, but it is unclear if nuclear weapons were used. At this point it would be foolish to cause a nuclear winter in order to take out 3 small factions that are rebelling. We also don't know if those 3 countries are all involved in the rebellion or only its leaders. We are told that the United States, the UK, and Egypt were the ones to rebel. The reason for this rebellion is completely unclear. The United States is the only one that makes sense because of how Nicolae tricked and forced the hand of the former president. The UK and Egypt make no sense, nor are we told why they are rebelling. Egypt has never been a really strong ally of the United States, so I don't see them trying to support the US. The UK could be an ally trying to back up the US, but the question is why. As much as they are an ally, they never get involved with our disputes unless they have to. But then that was why NATO was created. Nicolae tells Rayford to go sit with the pilot and maybe he could learn how to fly more than one type of plane. Rayford grudgingly agrees and goes and sits in the co-pilot's seat. The pilot is cordial with Rayford and he discusses the situation going on. We learn that the former Air Force One was completely destroyed, but luckily Rayford's old boss was safe before the attack. Rayford learns that his old boss is going to teach him how to fly the new plane because he built it. Scene changes to Buck and Chloe as they drive their new Range Rover. Buck makes a snide comment when Chloe complains about the cost of it. Buck says that Nicolae is paying the bill and it was a good investment for the cause of Christ. This is a false way of saying they robbed Nicolae. They pretend to sugarcoat it and try to reason that by painting Nicolae as the Antichrist it makes it alright to commit theft. Because they are supposedly Christians, because they robbed from Nicolae, they are claiming it's in support of Christ even though it's only for themselves. They need to lie to justify their bad behavior. As if Jesus, if he even existed, is so proud that his followers will rob and steal in his name. Skipping ahead past them bragging out their theft, scene changes to Rayford. He hears the pilot say how much he envies Rayford and Rayford tells him not to. Scene changes back to Buck as they arrive at the church. They meet worthless Bruce's secretary as she cries over his death. We get more of her backstory about how she lived her life and why she was left behind during the disappearances. Then she moves on to how Bruce somehow changed her life by giving her a job. Buck watches indifferently as the women mourn for Bruce. He guesses he might feel something one day, but right now he's not bothered. Buck finds a laptop and learns that it has Bruce's personal files on it. He immediately wants to print out everything in order to preserve his work. Whatever it might be. It sounds like Bruce was making notes on how he interpreted the Bible passages he was studying. In essence, he made a Bible commentary to interpret the vague innuendos the Bible is known to be written in. This is why the passages need special interpretation and are not direct and straightforward. Before he died, he asked her to print out everything he wrote. She had been trying this and shows the piles of paper she printed. She was not even done yet, but she had enough to fill up a printing box from top to bottom. Buck sees all this and wants to turn all the notes into a book, or commentary on the Bible. Many apologists and pastors have written such books, but this has always been strange. In the Gospels, Jesus rebuked the Pharisees for doing this. Christians will remark with distaste the actions of the Pharisees, then in the next instant do everything they did. Hypocrites much. Scene changes to Rayford and Fortuno enters the cockpit and asks them to order food for Nicolae. In light of the recent attacks, I'm surprised they would trust them to do so and not order it himself. Scene changes to Buck. He calls a tech guy that helped teach the secretary how to print the notes on Bruce's computer. Buck calls him and he agrees to go to the church to meet with him. Scene changes back to Rayford as they land in Dallas. Nicolae puts on a disguise to hide his identity. Rayford tries to greet his old boss, that he yells in disgust at Rayford. For some unknown reason. Nicolae becomes impatient because he wants to fly, but Rayford's boss informs him it will take 30 minutes to teach Rayford how to fly the plane. Another quick bit with Buck talking to that Donnie guy. The one to teach about the printer. He mostly brags about how great he is and ends this bit by asking when Bruce will return. He wasn't part of the group that was told worthless Bruce is serving a purpose for a change. As fertilizer. Back to Rayford, he and his old boss enter the new plane and they stop all the pretenses. His boss is no longer pretending to hate him, but not even sure why that should matter. Whether he likes Rayford or hates him, so what? Who cares? This is just weird conspiracy theory mentality. They think everyone is against them and they must pretend to be fake in order to prevent the quote-unquote bad guys from finding out. If those bad guys even cared, I mean honestly. Just to prove my point, Rayford talks to his old boss about the situation and the boss says that Nicolae wants him dead, for some unknown reason, and was trying to somehow pin the blame on Rayford. The problem with all of this is that there is no logical reasoning for any of it. This whole book series is like watching a mental patient roll up their shit into tiny balls and collect it into piles while they brag about how clever they are. I know the authors can't read, but it is possible to write a book series that makes sense. You can write something in which the readers have an idea of what's going on, instead of them wondering what is happening and why doesn't this book make sense. His old boss continues his conspiracy theory that they want him dead for some unknown reason. He expects that Nicolae's people will kill him after he teaches Rayford how to fly the plane. Rayford protests but doesn't put up much of a defense. Another worthless paragraph about Buck telling Donnie that Bruce died and Donnie can't imagine anyone ever being able to replace worthless Bruce. I mean, seriously, at this point an actual mouse could do a better job than worthless Bruce. Back to Rayford, and rather than teaching Rayford how to fly the plane yet, we get Nicolae's itinerary. Of course, more of this is nonsense as we are told they will be flying east instead of west to New Babylon. Rayford asks why and his boss has no idea. Not even sure why his former boss would be telling him this and not Nicolae and his people. If Nicolae were really in danger, then this info would be kept secret until they were ready to lift off the ground. This would prevent the enemy from finding out and attacking. The chapter ends with Buck telling Donnie that he wants some special high-powered and high-priced computers for him to use. Donnie agrees and says he has some ideas about what Buck wants. Assuming Buck is going to try and make Nicolae pay for these because theft is a very in concept among Christians. What was the commandment? Thou shalt steal whenever it profits you, and claims to be doing it in the name of your God. It seems as if Christians already know their God doesn't exist. This ends chapter 2 of Nicolae. See you next time for chapter 3.